Happy Days wasn't just a sitcom, it was a national hug, a weekly reminder of simpler times when jukeboxes ruled, leather jackets were rebellion enough, and your biggest worry was making it to Arnold's before closing. For 11 seasons, the Cunningham family and their greaser next door became America's comfort food, launching catchphrases, spawning spin-offs, and turning a supporting character into the coolest guy on television. But behind those Saturday night ratings and that iconic theme song, there's a treasure trove of Hollywood what-ifs, network panic, and pure accident. Today, we're counting down 13 weird facts you didn't know about Happy Days. If you've got your own Happy Days memories, or you're just here for the Fonz, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to take a trip down memory lane. Number 13, it all started because of a movie you've definitely seen. Most people don't realize Happy Days began as a backdoor pilot hidden inside a 1972 episode of Love American Style called Love and the Happy Days. Ron Howard played Richie Cunningham in that 30-minute test run, and the concept was simple, nostalgic family comedy set in the Eisenhower era. But here's the kicker, nobody cared. ABC passed. The pilot sat on a shelf gathering dust until George Lucas released American Graffiti in 1973, with Ron Howard front and center, and suddenly the whole country was hungry for sock hops and hot rods. ABC scrambled back to Garry Marshall, dusted off that failed pilot, and Happy Days was born. Not from creative genius, but from riding the coattails of a surprise box office hit. Sometimes timing really is everything. Number 12. The Fonz was supposed to be a footnote. When Arthur Fonzarelli first showed up, he was supposed to disappear. Henry Winkler's Fonzie was written as a minor recurring character, a street-tough dropout who'd pop in occasionally to remind middle-class audiences that rebels existed. ABC was actually nervous about him. Network executives thought the leather jacket made Fonzie look too much like a hoodlum, maybe even a gang member. They tried to ban the jacket entirely. Garry Marshall fought back with a compromise. Fonzie could wear the leather only when he was near his motorcycle, which suddenly meant that motorcycles showed up in every single scene. By the end of season 1, fan mail was pouring in for Winkler. By season 2, Fonzie was a lead character. By season 3, he was the main character, and Happy Days had completely transformed into the Fonzie show. All because Marshall refused to let ABC strip away a piece of costume. Number 11. Ron Howard left because he wanted to sit in a different chair. Richie Cunningham was the heart of Happy Days for 7 seasons, but by 1980, Ron Howard was itching to get behind the camera. He'd already directed his first feature, Grand Theft Auto, in 1977, and tasted the directing bug. Howard approached Garry Marshall and said he wanted out, not because of drama, not because of money, but because he had bigger ambitions. Marshall, ever the mensch, worked out a gentle exit. Richie got married and moved away to pursue his dream of becoming a screenwriter, which felt almost meta. Howard would go on to direct Splash, Cocoon, Apollo 13, and eventually win Oscars. But here's the sweet part. Howard remained close with the cast and would drop by the set even after leaving. His exit wasn't a bridge burned, it was a career launched. Number 10. Fonzie's office was a bathroom because the set was tiny. That iconic moment when Fonzie would bang the jukebox at Arnold's and it would magically start playing? Classic? But Fonzie's office at Arnold's, the men's room, wasn't a quirky character choice. It was a budget decision. The Happy Days set was cramped, especially in the early years before the show became a mega hit. Producers needed a private space where Fonzie could hold court, dish out advice, and look cool. But they didn't have room to build another set. Someone noticed the bathroom set was already there, always underused, and boom, Fonzie's office was born. What could have been a throwaway gag became one of the show's most memorable running bits. Fonzie dispensing wisdom while leaning against a bathroom sink shouldn't have worked, but somehow it was perfect. Necessity really is the mother of invention, even when that invention is turning a lavatory into a leather-jacketed philosopher's den. Number 9. Laverne and Shirley were only supposed to show up once in 1975. Happy Days needed a couple of girls for Fonzie and Richie to double date in a single episode. Garry Marshall cast Penny Marshall, his own sister, and Cindy Williams as a pair of wisecracking brewery workers named Laverne and Shirley. The audience went nuts. The chemistry was electric, the laughs were huge, and ABC smelled money. By 1976, Laverne and Shirley had its own show, and it became an even bigger hit than Happy Days, briefly claiming the #1 spot in the ratings. That one throwaway appearance launched a franchise. And it wasn't just luck. Marshall knew his sister's comedic timing, and Williams brought the perfect counterbalance. Sometimes magic happens when you least expect it, and sometimes that magic makes more money than the original show. That's got to sting just a little. Real quick, who's your favorite Happy Days character? Richie, Fonzie, or the criminally underrated Ralph Malph? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you're loving this trip back to the 50s that never were, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Number 8. Robin Williams auditioned as a normal human being. Before Mork became one of TV's most beloved aliens, Robin Williams walked into a Happy Days audition in 1978 and sat down like a regular person. Garry Marshall was looking for an alien character to shake up a February sweeps episode. Total gimmick, total throwaway. Williams sat in the chair, Marshall asked him a question, and Williams responded by standing on his head and delivering his lines upside down. Marshall hired him on the spot. That one episode, My Favorite Orkin, was such a phenomenon that ABC ordered a spin-off before the episode even aired. Mork and Mindy debuted 7 months later and made Robin Williams a superstar. The crazy part? Williams improvised most of his lines, and the script literally included stage directions that said, "Robin will do something here." One upside-down audition changed television history. Not bad for a guy pretending to be from another planet. Number 7. Tom Hanks played a guy who fought Fonzie. Years before Forrest Gump, before Saving Private Ryan, before double Oscars, Tom Hanks was a struggling young actor who needed a gig. In 1982, he appeared in a 2-part Happy Days episode as a former classmate of Fonzie who challenges him to a fight. Hanks played the heel, the antagonist trying to prove he was tougher than the Fonz. Spoiler, he wasn't. Hanks has since joked about how surreal it was to get beat up by Arthur Fonzarelli on national television. At the time, it was just another guest spot on a hit sitcom. But in hindsight, it's one of those delightful, before they were famous, moments that makes you appreciate how many future legends passed through Milwaukee. Hanks would go on to become one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. But Fonzie still won the fight. Number 6. The Fonz literally jumped the shark and gave us a phrase forever. September 1977. Season 5 premiere. The writers decided Fonzie should water ski over a shark while wearing his leather jacket and swim trunks. Yes, really. The episode, filmed in Los Angeles pretending to be Hollywood, was meant to be a flashy season opener. Ratings were fine, the scene was ridiculous, and everyone moved on. Except years later, a TV critic named John Hine coined the phrase "jumping the shark" to describe the moment a show runs out of ideas and starts doing desperate stunts. The phrase stuck. It became pop culture shorthand for creative decline, and Happy Days, ironically still running strong for 6 more years after the shark jump, became the poster child for its own idiom. The funniest part? Garry Marshall never thought the scene was a big deal. He saw it as harmless fun. Sometimes your dumbest idea becomes your most lasting legacy. Number 5. Marion Ross wasn't the first Mrs. Cunningham. Everyone knows Marion Ross is the warm, wise, apron-wearing Marion Cunningham. But in that original 1972 pilot, Buried in Love, American Style, the role was played by another actress entirely. When ABC finally greenlit Happy Days 2 years later, they recast the mother. Marion Ross wasn't even Garry Marshall's first choice. He'd auditioned dozens of actresses. But Ross brought something special. She felt like everyone's mom. She had that Midwestern warmth, that gentle authority, that twinkle in her eye that said she knew more than she let on. Ross would stay with the show for all 11 seasons, earning 2 Emmy nominations along the way. And here's the beautiful part. She and Tom Bosley, who played Howard Cunningham, had such natural chemistry that audiences never questioned they were anything but soulmates. Recasting can make or break a show. This one saved it. Number 4. The show's theme song changed, and you probably didn't notice. For the first 2 seasons, Happy Days opened with a wistful ballad called Rock Around the Clock. But it wasn't Bill Haley's version. It was a slower, mellower cover that didn't quite fit the show's energy. Audiences didn't hate it, but they didn't love it either. By season 3, when Fonzie had taken over and the show leaned harder into nostalgia and fun, producers switched to an original song, Happy Days, written by Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel. You know the one. Sunday, Monday, Happy Days. It was peppier, catchier, and it turned into an earworm that defined the series. The song was released as a single and cracked the Billboard Hot 100, eventually hitting number 5. That's right, the Happy Days theme song was a legitimate radio hit. Changing that theme wasn't just a creative decision. It was a branding masterstroke that made the show feel even more like comfort food. Number 3. Henry Winkler. Couldn't ride a motorcycle. The Fonz was the coolest guy on television. Leather jacket, slicked back hair, effortless swagger, and that beautiful motorcycle he'd kickstart with one smooth motion. There was just one tiny problem. Henry Winkler had no idea how to ride a motorcycle. In fact, he was terrified of it. Winkler has admitted in interviews that he never actually rode the bike during filming. He'd sit on it, pose with it, start it up, but whenever Fonzie needed to ride off into the sunset, a stunt double took over or the scene cut away. Production worked around it brilliantly, and audiences never suspected a thing. The irony is perfect. The toughest, most rebellious character in 70s TV was played by a classically trained Yale drama grad who was scared of his own prop. Winkler's acting was so good, we all believed he was born on that bike. Number 2. Fonzie. Almost got married, and it almost killed the show. By the early 80s, Happy Days was running on fumes, and the network was desperate for a ratings boost. Executives pitched the idea. Fonzie gets married. Garry Marshall hated it. He knew that the second Fonzie settled down, the character would lose everything that made him special. The Fonz worked because he was unattainable, mysterious, the eternal bachelor. A married Fonzie folding laundry? That wasn't cool. That was sad. Marshall fought ABC tooth and nail, and eventually they compromised. Fonzie would get engaged, but the wedding would fall apart. The episode aired, the engagement broke off, and Fonzie stayed single. Marshall later said if they'd forced the marriage, the show would have been canceled within a year. He was probably right. Sometimes protecting a character means protecting them from the very network that created them. Number 1. Scott Baio was brought in to replace Fonzie. Sort of. By 1977, Henry Winkler was a massive star, and there were real concerns he might leave the show for movies. Producers needed an insurance policy, so they brought in Scott Baio as Chachi Arcola, Fonzie's younger cousin. Chachi was deliberately designed as Fonzie-lite, younger, sweeter, but with that same leather jacket charm. If Winkler walked, Chachi could theoretically step up. But something funny happened. Audiences loved Chachi, not as a replacement, but as his own character. Winkler stayed, and Chachi became a breakout in his own right, eventually spinning off into Joni Loves Chachi, which didn't quite work. But here's the thing. Baio's addition didn't replace Fonzie. It expanded the universe. The show kept rolling, and what was meant to be a safety net became a weird, wonderful bonus character. Sometimes the best plan B is the one you never have to use. So there you have it. 13 weird, wonderful facts about a show that gave us 11 seasons of comfort, catchphrases, and the coolest thumbs up in television history. Which fact surprised you the most? Did you know Fonzie couldn't ride his own bike? Drop a comment. Share this with someone who still remembers Sunday, Monday, Happy Days. And we'll see you next time for another trip down memory lane.